All from one family on stage, their first gig, the Corrs.
It didn't go in that we could actually be meeting our producer or that this could be a major record deal for us.
If you feel the emotion in every song, you give across the emotion of the song.
You have been a wonderful audience and we will remember this. We will be back.
When you're put in a situation where you have to perform, where you have to deliver no matter what, if something happens.
That's why we're doing it. We're doing it because we love it.
Hi, this is Mark Gerard. I am the director on the music video Forgiven Not Forgotten, and you're listening to CorrsCast.
Hi, and welcome to episode 10 of CorrsCast. Episode 10 of CorrsCast also coincides with a year of the show being active. Thank you so much for those that have reached out with such warm greetings and messages and support and reviews. I appreciate it so much, and it's really wonderful to now be able to celebrate a year of episodes for the show. And in part, this is certainly thanks to those that are listening. So again, a huge thank you, and here's to the next year. Thank you for such an incredible response to the last episode. It had the usual listenership of 6 weeks in 6 days. And that really gives us a good idea and indication of how the show is growing and the type of content that the fan base is responding to. So again, thank you so much. It was a world first to be able to hear anything of that unreleased track. And fear not, there is similar to come. I'm currently scripting and recording something incredibly special, so do continue to watch this space. In this episode, we're taking a sidestep from the music itself again to discuss the promotion of the title track, namely the music video for Forgiven Not Forgotten. Being the second single to release from the album, and as of the recording of this episode, reaching over 1.7 million views on YouTube, who better to discuss this iconic video than the director himself, Mark Gerard? As I'm sure you've come accustomed to now, I began our interview by asking Mark how he came to be in the position of being asked to direct a music video for the band. Enjoy. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on. It's really cool to take part in this, especially regarding the video side of the promotion of the album. I'd love to begin our time together by asking about your background and what happened in your career prior to you meeting the Corrs. Tell me a bit about how you got to where you were.
Right. So I started working as a DP shooting music videos in, it was the late 80s, and was doing a lot of shooting like hair metal bands and doing that sort of work. And then literally, I think it was right at the end of 89, beginning of 90, the whole music scene just flipped. Mm-hmm. And suddenly hair metal was just like fell off a cliff. Nobody was listening to it anymore. I mean, like it happened instantly.
Wow.
And what took over at that time was hip hop.
Yeah.
And so I shot, at that point, I was transitioning to directing music videos. And so one of the very first videos I did was for NWA. And it was for the song Always Into Something for NWA. And then I did a second one for them, which ended up being their last video together as a group, was Appetite for Destruction. And so because it was NWA, I sort of fell into this, kind of got pigeonholed as a hip hop director. Mm. And so it was, going on 5 years after that, I was trying to sort of open up my horizons, I would say. Mm. And I can't remember what the exact path to, my being up for consideration to do the Corrs, but somehow it happened. And then, we ended up doing Forgiven Not Forgotten. And that's sort of how I got to that place, after having shot a bunch of hip hop videos.
To your memory, is Forgiven Not Forgotten the first of that branching out
or had you done like maybe one or two prior to that, and maybe that's why you were on the horizon?
I'm trying to think, because right around that same time I did Everclear, and I can't remember if I did Everclear first or the Corrs first. There were a few videos right around that time. It's like I'd have to pull up my resume.
I was looking at your resume a little, and I saw how much hip hop there was, and I was like, wow, that's an interesting choice.
Right. I literally was pigeonholed as a gangster rap director. There was a lot of stuff I went up for, rock or just contemporary pop music and stuff. And I would, people would see my reel. I would send them a reel, and it would it would be a bunch of rappers running around, doing wild stuff, and people would just
a little contrast from pop kind Irish pop folk kind of connection. There's definitely a little different.
Because it's funny. I mean, I probably did, I don't know, 70 to 80 music videos, and the thing that comes to mind that was right around that time was Lit, because I did those around the same time, and I did Queen Latifah as well. And, there was just there was like a little bit of overlap on some of the hip hop, like Queen Latifah is an example. I think I might have done her before they did the Corrs, but again, it's around the same time. And I was kind of doing a little more R&B at that time. But because, that genre had become so mainstream, it was, as big as pop music at that point. I mean, it had made a huge ascension into the mainstream. So I think that's where the crossover, happened, where, the Corrs were considered someone with my resume for their work. And I had done a lot of work for Atlantic Records, and that's who the label was, at least on the video side.
Definitely. Yeah, that makes sense then. That makes sense. So it's somebody already on their roster. You've worked with Atlantic, you're trustable. Okay, let's see what happens here. That this is David Foster's first band album with Lava and 143, and let's see what Mark can do with this, I guess. Which is
it was that sort of thing. Yeah.
Everybody that's listening has seen the video. We know the video. How did the idea and the project of the video come about?
Yeah, I think the idea was they wanted to do a performance video, so it wasn't going to be there wasn't going to be a story to go into, what does it mean forgiven, not forgotten? It's like some memory that, what is that scene? They didn't want to go there, to do like a breakdown of story and stuff like that. So, the idea I came up with, it was just kind of just a visual abstraction of a sort of mysterious dark interior that would be the performance space, and then it would just seamlessly transition to these sort of abstract seasonal landscapes, kind of representing stages of memory or something, different sort of environments, and then it would segue back to the interior location, and then segue back out to that. And it just would provide like a changing, sort of evolving visual environment for the performance to play out in. So that was kind of what the idea was. And, we basically had a great production designer, this guy, Bill Eigenbrot, who had done a bunch of work with me. And he, we came up with this idea of sort of an octagon, sort of a circular room and an octagon room. And then the floor was a giant motorized turntable. So the room itself was stationary, but the whole interior space was spinning. And that's where that's where the performance played out. And which gave us those sweeping sort of moves around them while they were performing and stuff. So yeah, and that was essentially it. And then they were great. They were on that turntable for, I forget how long we shot, 12, 14 hours or something, just spinning all day long. So it was like I think we all sort of had little sea legs, at the end of the day, because you're just, you're constantly moving. So that was a lot of fun, but they were great. Yeah.
I've heard reports and read interviews that, they felt by the end of the day, they had sea legs and felt more than queasy.
Oh, did they talk? I didn't know that. We talked about it then, but I didn't know that came up in interviews. That's pretty funny. Yeah.
I think it's, it's obvious. Obviously that turn is happening to make that effect. And so I think they would have been asked by interviewers and stuff at the time, like, well, what was that like? And I think the perception was that, yeah, it would have taken a day. You're not going to shoot that in 3 minutes and you're done. So
right.
Yeah.
But I had this idea for this circular room, and it's funny because I was playing around with the giant turntables, the motorized turntables, on several other videos that I was doing at that time, doing different ideas with that, but this was the first one I had done where it was, the entire interior space was in motion like that. So it was fun. It was fun, and they were, they were true, they were champs. I mean, they kept going without, no problems. I mean, it was really fun.
It's like, this is our music video. Let's do this. Yeah.
No, they were great. They were great.
Obviously, Atlantic got in touch. Hi, we're doing a video. Did you then have a period of time where you listened to the track and then had to present them like a storyboard, or?
Yeah, the standard approach with the video thing was, they would contact me. They'd send the track. They'd say, we're interested in hearing a concept from you. And then basically you listen to the track and you come up with an idea, and you write it up. Usually there were like 1 or 2 pages, Sometimes they would have parameters. Like in this case, they did want it to be a performance video. So that's sort of where that's kind of what the foundation was for the idea. In this case, it was basically like I had the idea and I pitched it, and they were like, great, let's do it.
And from being asked to do it to actually filming, have you any idea of how long that period was?
The schedule on videos was always really pretty fast. From the point that they would be asking for submissions to, awarding the gig, to shooting, they could, sometimes it was within like a week or days even. And sometimes it might be 2 weeks, 3 weeks on the outside. It was a pretty rapid process. And then, like in this case, typically a lot of videos were shot in one day. You shoot in one day, and then you have basically a week or sometimes 2 if you were lucky to do the post.
Wow.
And it was done. So it was pretty high pace when it would happen. Once you'd get the green light.
And then having to dump that out of your mind and then be fresh for the next assignment that's a skill set.
Oh yeah, well that's what was so fun about it. I mean, it was like a lot of creative freedom, and a lot of creative collaboration would go on, and I mean it was a great flow at that time. It was.
Do you have access to any of that brief from Atlantic still? Do you have it in your records anywhere or anything like that?
It's funny. I have my production book from back in the day. I looked through here because I was just curious to see what was kept. And, unfortunately, it's crew info, and it's more like this than nuts and bolts. The actual set layout. The idea was these walls were hinged, so they would open.
That's it. Yeah.
And there was a green screen out here, so that we'd have the grips would actually like be moving the walls open and close, and that's how we did those transitions.
What was the budget for the video?
I don't remember. I have to look here and see if it's listed. Oh, there it is. It was $93,000.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, budgets. It's amazing because I think it would be hard to find a young group or young artists that would be spending that kind of money these days on videos. It's there's so many factors that were different because like this was shot on film.
Yeah. And
so it was all, the film expense alone, I think was almost $5,000.
Wow.
And then on top of that, post-production on this was almost $15,000. So it was like, a good 20% of the budget was just on film and processing, post, digital, taking it to videotape and whatnot. I mean, it wasn't even digital then; it was just videotape.
Yeah, analog.
So it was, I mean, it was different in that sense, and it was also, it's like budgets for music videos in the 90s were year over year. They just would go up and up and up and up, which was, the labels would split the cost with acts, but a lot of times. I mean, it was recoupable, and So I mean, it was a tax, you know, it was like a tax on the artists for promoting their work. You know, one of those costs that was kind of necessary back then
Yeah.
To get out in the world.
Yeah. To get anywhere.
Yeah, and you know, now it's just a whole different game. I mean, you know, people are making videos for next to nothing, and sometimes they're really good. You know, it's like sometimes people come up with great ideas and they execute flawlessly, and you're just blown away by what they make stuff for. You know, but you know, a big part of that too is it's just in the digital realm. It's, you know,
Yeah.
as long as you have a camera and maybe a few lights, you know, if you're digital, you can shoot for free. You know.
Yeah.
And back in those days, I mean, just film cost. I mean, film costs now, if you were shooting on film, it would be just ridiculous, you know?
Yeah. It would look beautiful, but it would be ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Still alone, staring on, wishing her life goodbye, as she goes searching for the man long forgiven but not forgotten. You're forgiven, 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 not forgotten. You're not forgotten. You're not forgotten. You're not forgotten. No, you're not forgotten.
I'm wondering if I can bring you back to the day itself and
Uh-huh.
you meeting the band for the first time. Can you remember that moment and how that went down?
Yeah, you know, I think it was basically I was on set and they arrived at the stage, you know, and, you know, it was because we were shooting them one day, you know, we basically had like 5 minutes to say hello and get introduced. And then they had to rush off into, you know, hair, makeup, and wardrobe.
Mm.
And, you know, we're feverishly finishing the set build and lighting and getting the setup ready, and then they would come. I mean, like it all happened really fast, you know. I mean, they arrived at the stage, and you know, we basically said hello, and then they were into hair, makeup, and wardrobe, you know.
Get
And
done.
and then they, you know, I think we probably walked through the set, I think, before they went in, but you know, just so they had the idea.
I think in my mind I have a vision of, I don't know if all of the band and then somebody going, right, hit the switch. This is what the revolving stage feels like. Is that okay for you? And stuff like that.
Oh yeah, there was probably, I'm sure we did like you know, we turned it on just so they could feel it. Yeah. And then, you know, went around but it wasn't, you know, I think the startup it had a gradual ramp, you know, so it wasn't like it just would go and it would almost fall over or anything. I mean, it could, but the way, you know, it's like it would have a gradual ramp up. So it wasn't like an unsettling beginning and end to each take.
Especially holding instruments and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because the kind of the visual effects used make it look, I think, probably faster than it probably was on the day. I don't know.
Yeah, because I had to shoot all those backplates. And so that's not stock. It's actually footage I shot for the video. I went out to Joshua Tree and shot some of the backplates, and I went up into the San Gabriel Mountains to shoot the snow. And yeah, it was a lot of pre-production shooting those.
And did you do that specifically with this in mind?
Very specifically for this video. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you still have any of that? Any of those plates?
I have all of the masters of all of my work, but they're all, it's interesting. Like there was formats were changing year to year back then. So I have like D1s and D2s and digibetas and, you know, all these like master formats. And about 20 years ago, I transferred everything over. I digitized everything. And I know I still have those background plates on tape. I'm not sure if I transferred them when I did all my master transfers to digitize. You know, they're all setups where it's literally like there's nobody in the frame and it's just in the middle of nowhere, you know, and I'm basically, it's just me with the camera and I'm just panning 360 in the environment to get that sort of kind of revolving space. And the whole idea was, you know, it's those moving backgrounds that are complemented by the foreground movement on them on the turntable. You know, that was the whole, so the two were married that way.
Worked seamlessly. It's beautiful, especially when you get sort of like the crescendo of the chorus, and then they would run as we're opening the sides, and it just the pan matching and just it worked really, really effectively.
Thank you. That was fun to do. That was fun. And I thought, you know, I mean, of course, you know, you know, Andrew and Carolyn and Sharon, Jim, they all look great, you know, but I thought, you know, I thought they looked beautiful in the, you know, with the light and the contrast with the background and everything. So
yeah, it's iconic. It's iconic and definitely a fan favorite.
Oh, that's cool. That's great to hear.
What camera did you shoot the panning pre-production stuff on then?
It was an Arri SR. I had an Arri SR2. I had my own camera package back then, and that's how, you know, I was kind of able to do all because the locations, literally, it was like I would one day I drove up into the San Gabriel Mountains to shoot the snow, and you know, the next day I drove out to Joshua Tree, you know, to shoot those backgrounds. And there was other forest stuff. I think I might have shot that up in San Gabriel Mountains as well. The other forest footage. I was kind of driving all around Southern California, just, you know, finding nice locations that sort of had that feeling of a seasonal shift, you know.
It's interesting because speaking to Guzman, Connie and Russell, who did the photography for the album shoot, thematically, they went with seasons as well.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
And neither did I until I interviewed them. I couldn't tell that from the photography. But there was a lot of outtakes.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And they scanned the negs, and some of the outtakes do kind of highlight it a bit more obviously. But now they've kind of shown me their thought behind the thematics for the album shoot, and which was used for some of the singles as well. It kind of makes sense. So it's interesting that you went there as well.
Well, it's kind of, yeah, it's interesting. It's like we were tapping into the same zeitgeist or something. I didn't know that. That's fascinating.
And that might possibly be why Atlantic or the band themselves then went, yeah, that's a vibe that we've used before. Let's continue that with our video shoot, right? So maybe.
Yeah, I don't remember us having that conversation where it was like, you know, there was a sense of cohesion with something that was being done. You know, I think there was definitely something. If they had set that up, because they would have shot that before I did anyway, and I did not know that. You know, it's just kind of fascinating.
Are you solely responsible for all the editing?
Because I was working with an editor back then, and it might have been Mike Schultz who cut that one. He had worked on all of my hip hop stuff. He started with me on NWA, and brilliant editor, Michael Schultz. You know, it's not in the production list, but I think I'm pretty sure it was Michael who was on that one. It's funny too, because back then it was like, that was just on the verge of when Avid was just beginning to become a viable editing NLE format, you know, to work with. And I think that was theirs was one of the first projects I did on Avid as well for the offline. You know, the editing, the quality of the video back then was pretty rough, you know, for digital editing.
Yeah. And
so you would have to go to a post house to do all the tape to tape high res, more high res format. You know, we were still at 5:5 resolution back then. So, I mean, it's, you know, and it's so funny, like looking, I just pulled up I hadn't seen the version that's online, and because we were in the 4:3 format back in the 90s, you know, they blow that up and they blow it up and so they have to kind of like make it fill the 16:9 format now, and in doing so, you know, it takes a fairly low res image and it degrades it a little bit more, you know, so the stuff looks, you know, kind of soft. It's like, you know, and I go, God, it's just amazing. Because back then, you know, we were looking at the screens in the post house and it was like, oh my God, it looks great. It's so clear and sharp. And now, no, it's like, you know, compared to today's, you know, high res formats, it looks pretty primitive, you know. When I talk about digitizing all my videos, you know, it's basically the finals. All the raw footage, you know, once we would be done with the edit, the film would, you know, boxes and boxes of film, and also the master videotape dailies, which would be everything. Those went back to the label. And back then, I seriously doubt a lot of the labels even kept some of that stuff. I think they probably trashed it all. After a few years, you know, they probably got rid of it, which is sad, because I mean, I think about some of the background footage that I shot on a lot of stuff I did. I think, God damn, I mean, it's amazing that stuff was probably just trashed. You know, I mean, it's with the labels, with all of the sort of upheaval that happened around, you know, the early aughts, you know, that, and Napster almost taking everybody down. I mean, just everything just kind of like, just, you know, there was so much upheaval. It's just hard to imagine what survived that period, you know, because so many places downscaled and locations and offices and stuff. And who knows? I mean, I know, like, you know, some of the smaller labels I did work with, you know, all of the material would go back to them, and they would be in an office. Maybe they had a floor in a high rise or something, but they would have almost like a utility closet as a storeroom for all that stuff, you know. And those are the ones I think that, you know, once that location was moved out, they probably just, you know, got rid of some of that stuff.
Dread to think.
The original format, and you know, in the 525 lines of resolution format, that was 4:3, so everything was almost square. You know, it's like the traditional older Academy format. And then 16:9 is, you know, that's sort of the more theatrical long. So you know, it's the 4:3, that 525 resolution from the 90s. You know, that's what they would have to blow up to get that. A lot of times you'll see videos where the image looks stretched, because they'll take that and they'll just stretch it instead of blowing it up. And that's even worse than blowing it up. You know, it's really funny.
Thank you so much for taking the time. It's been really amazing to talk to you and relive what it was like to be on the set that day, and keep doing what you're doing. It's great.
I mean, hey, big props on doing this too. I think it's a cool idea. You know, it really is very cool.
Thank you so much.
All right, Simon.
Thanks Mark.
Thank you. This was great fun. Bye.
Again, a huge thanks to Mark Gerard for taking his time and being so willing and encouraging of the project as a whole, and to be able to impart his memories of the creation of the Forgiven Not Forgotten music video. In the episode, Mark mentioned the production booklet with images of the set. A link to these images can be found in the show notes. Again, I would encourage you to please rate and review the podcast on the platform you're listening on. It really does help spread the awareness of the show to others and grow the platform so that more fans can hear these amazing stories from the creators themselves. Please do also subscribe if you are listening back on YouTube. The response to putting the episodes up on YouTube has been really incredible. And I'd like to take a few moments to again reach out for feedback. What would you like to see as a Corrs fan on CorrsCast? This is obviously made by a fan for the fans to celebrate the music of the band. And I would obviously love the support and help of others to develop the show into something that the fan base would really love. Be it a news section or guest speakers that are fans to tell of fan stories. I'd love to hear from you if you'd want to be on the show, or if you have anything to share or advise, or if you just have advice on what works well on other podcasts or shows you listen to that you also appreciate, please do feel free to get in touch. The easiest way would probably be through the website, CorrsCast.com, where you'll see a series of links to all the social media that CorrsCast is active on. Thank you so much in advance. Until next time, you've been listening to CorrsCast.